All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Zach Clark Show. I am super excited for today's guest, Kristy Fitzgerald. Kristy is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She runs a private practice both in New York City and New Jersey. We have done a lot of work together over the years, and I'm happy to jump into it with her. Kristy, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
You're nervous?
A little nervous.
That's
I'm
okay.
hoping I'll get over it.
Yeah, you're fine. We can you can help me with my personal and be my therapist, and I can help you understand that no one actually cares. Everyone's thinking about themselves, right?
That's true. That is true. That I know.
So Kristy and I, we met probably, I don't know if it's 10, 8, whatever years ago, and we go to all these marketing dinners, which they are what they are. You meet people, you start to learn things about people's lives. And it came up at one point that Kristy is a Pearl Jam fan.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, she's in.
Right.
How did that start?
I started listening to Pearl Jam when I was in 1992 as a teenager.
Okay.
Teenager of a true teen of the 90s. And then actually really started getting into them more once I moved to New York in 2000 because my little brother got into them.
Okay.
And there was a resurgence. And so we started going to all the shows and going to so many shows, flying all over Hawaii to see them and Europe and, going to MSG in September.
I will be there one way or another. If I have to go in through the basement, we'll get there.
Right. So but finding that out at that, whatever it was, dinner was so fun because it was something real to talk about
Right.
in terms of comparing what shows you've been to or, whatever. And then obviously naming your,
Well, that's the thing I don't think,
building.
I'm trying to let them know, when are they going to find out? But,
I feel like it's going to happen, but when it does, if Eddie comes, you have to let me know or I'm going to be it's going to be hard to not forgive you.
So people I have a little bit people know who I am sometimes when I walk around the world, and people are always like, who is the person you go up to and ask for a picture with? And it's Eddie Vedder. It's one person.
Yes.
And it's Eddie Vedder. No one else, I could give a shit about a photo with anyone else on this
Agreed.
planet. But if I see Eddie Vedder,
You're
no
going.
shame in the fucking game. I'm
Correct.
going up and because their music saved my life. I truly believe that. When I was getting sober, that shit was on 24/7.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I just, the story behind Release and the song, and I was talking to my dad this morning, and the song about your dad. It's too much to even talk about, but I don't know how much you've kept up on them, but I do know that I think it was last week, Taylor Swift
And Pearl Jam.
on the same day.
Yes.
So you're a Swiftie too.
It's been very hard for me this past week.
I need the honest answer. Which album did you put on first?
Oh, no. Well, I listened to Wreckage, which was the song that they released first.
Okay.
But then I listened to Taylor Swift for an entire weekend.
Yeah, over
and then
and
I
over.
went back to it.
Okay.
So I've been back on it this whole week.
That's
Pearl
fair.
Jam.
That's fair. Look, Taylor is on
I had
top of the
to.
world right now. Yeah, no, I've listened to a couple.
What's your
Taylor Swift?
No, I was going to say, what's your favorite off the new album?
If I'm being completely honest, I haven't really dug in yet.
You got to dug in.
I listen to Running, I listen to I've listened to some of the I haven't really gotten turn the lights off and gone there, which I need to do. I've just been really busy.
It's good. It's a good album, and I actually like Wreckage. That song Wreckage almost the best. Kind of has a Tom Petty vibe.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yes. It's good.
And then I've listened to a couple of Taylor Swift songs. I don't even know. Down Bad. I don't know.
Yes. I'm impressed.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, you find yourself on enough text chains and people are shooting shit all over the place. You kind of, it's like everything else in the world. Every once in a while you press play on something.
Totally. But it's the vulnerability that's connecting everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone can relate because she's being so open and honest.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yep.
I wonder, you think she's probably done some therapy over the years, right?
I can imagine she's had to. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would love to be her therapist.
I couldn't, yeah.
That would be amazing.
But you can't, the thing about,
the NDA on that would be intense, I'm sure.
Significant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good place to start because, like, you talk about Taylor Swift, like anyone in the, like, when do you get to that point where you actually, like, say, I'm gonna, I mean, maybe I'll back up because I'm gonna get there, but so, like, why therapy? Why did you decide to?
So it's kind of, it makes sense now, but at the time, like, I didn't start out knowing that I wanted to do this for sure. I think there's kind of an innate desire for our own healing that kind of brings people into this field, and I'd say that definitely was a part of it. And I don't even know how conscious I was of that at the time. But I actually, like, I went to Florida State. I was a writer. I moved to New York to be a writer, so I was doing a lot of hospitality jobs for a pretty long time, which I actually think really informs the work that I do in terms of just kind of being able to talk to anybody, and knowing how to relate to people, knowing how to read people.
Dealing with tough people.
Well, just talking to people all the time. And then I actually had a friend at one point kind of say, like, you should be a therapist, because I was everybody's therapist. Like, I was the friend that would answer at like 2 a.m. because of the breakup or whatever. So I actually started looking into it. And I was
She's still a friend?
She is still a friend.
And does she know that? Like, does she know that?
Yeah, she knows.
Okay.
She knows.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She was a catalyst.
I was going to give her credit if she didn't.
Yeah, she was a catalyst. And so I started looking into it, and then, took a few classes and really, really loved it. And then realized that, like, it kind of was like an extension of what I'd already been doing in terms of relating and working with people, but kind of just having more knowledge and how to do that in a way. And
so it wasn't some, like, because, like a lot of people that do this work, it's very personal to them, or...
Well, in the course of doing that, I think I realized how much work I had to do for myself. And so it's no surprise to me that I work a lot with trauma. I work a lot with substance use. I think, transgenerational trauma, attachment trauma was something that I really had to, like, dive into and find my own way. And so getting into school and then realizing, like, okay, I need to do my own work. It was like a parallel process.
Right.
In a lot of ways.
The thing that's always amazed me about Kristy is, so we, behavioral health care, it's almost impossible to be liked by everyone, but I've never heard anyone say it bad. Like, from your patients, your colleagues, like, it's just, so you have a way with people. I mean, that's very clear to me, and that's why I've always been fascinated by you, because, I mean, look, there's plenty of people that I've worked with that, like, we just didn't see eye to eye on things, and, we go our separate ways or whatever it is, and it's, like, I'm sensitive, so that hurts sometimes. Like, if a client or someone I'm trying to coach or help get sober doesn't agree with me, but I think it takes a lot to have such a sterling reputation, so I just wanted to, like...
Oh, thank you for saying that. I think it's meeting people where they're at, being able to collaborate, not letting, like, your ego get in the way, like, being comfortable not knowing, and being in your own vulnerability, whether it's with the client or with another, like, clinician or whomever you're collaborating with.
Yeah.
And, like, being authentic about that, I think that's probably
I mean, you've also navigated, like, we were talking about this before the cameras or the whatever started rolling. It's like this world that we work in is funny because we're all helpers, and I think for the most part, like 90%, I would say, of us genuinely want to help people, but it's a business too. And there becomes this weird, competitive, jealous, and you've always kind of stayed above it. Like, you're there and you're participating and you show up at the dinners and you do what you have to do to build your business. But you're not, like, in the shit. Cause like any other field, like, or any other community, like, there's just shit.
Yeah, that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Try to stay out of the shit.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky to meet other really like-minded therapists that have their heart in the right place, that are really good at what they do, that just want what's right for the client. And if that's the goal, sometimes that's not me. Like, sometimes I'm not the right fit for the client, right? And that needs to be okay. Like, that's part of this job, is knowing. And I think, like, understanding you could have whatever letters after your name. You could go to the best school, but if you don't know how to relate to that person,
Right.
or they can't relate to you, it's not going to matter.
Right.
And I think so the fit of the therapist is so important, right? And then I think when you're talking about collaborating, like there's so much to learn from other people, and just staying open in that way, I think kind of cultivates those relationships. And I've been really lucky to have other therapists that like really lift me up, and I get to do the same for them. That we've always just helped each other.
Right.
You know?
I love that. And you guys have tough jobs, because I feel like therapy oftentimes is like the first step that people are, I mean, one, I think therapy is obviously highly stigmatized, right? Especially for men.
Yeah.
I tell one of my friends, like, hey, have you tried therapy? And they look at me like I'm an alien.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that when someone suggested therapy to me, I was like, oh, cool. Like, what's that? And I don't know why, but that was when I think back in my story, like the first thing that I was actually willing to try. But it makes your job hard, because they're coming in and they don't actually know what's going on.
Right.
They're probably drinking too much, or they're cheating on their wife, or they're, failing at work, like whatever it is. There's and you're like, what is that first? I mean, like,
Well, especially now with having enough experience, like I can kind of feel it out pretty quickly, but you have to time things so carefully so the person can hear it, right? If the person's in there on the first day, I can't start badgering them about their drinking. I need them to feel like safe to explore it. Can we be curious about it? So kind of, timing, and still something that I work on, because I can be really fast and like want to just get to it. And like, I have had to slow myself down a lot and like sit in that kind of like knowing, and really be kind of timing it so that they're ready to hear it. Because otherwise they're going to leave.
Right.
If they hear something they don't like and they're not ready,
What's the the patient you've seen, like who is I know we can't share like details, but what's the longest period of time? Who, like your longest standing patient?
I wonder if she's probably going to end up hearing this. I've had a client since my first job, when I was still getting my hours, was at an outpatient, substance abuse outpatient. And I worked in New York? Yeah, in New York. And I worked with teens, and because I wanted to work with families, so I worked a lot with the teens. And I think she was 14, and now she's like 24.
No shit.
Yeah.
And
so she's been with me ever since. And not all my clients are like that. I'd say most people kind of leave and come back or whatever, but she's been with me the whole time.
How cool is that?
It's pretty awesome. I feel like at this point it's more about the relationship than it is about like a clinical therapeutic.
Well, she trusts you. And that's the thing that I like when I talk to people about, hey, give therapy a shot. It's like, who doesn't want to go into a room for an hour where the person sitting across from you literally can't say shit to anyone, and be able to just speak freely, and like you can actually trust that person. Now, sure, have therapists breached, of course, but
I think the reason but I also think it's hard, because I think when we slow down and sit in that room, we have to feel our feelings, and I think that's why people avoid it. Because we do so much to avoid, like whether it's just the going, or working, or our phones, or with substances. Like I feel like it's hard to actually slow down and just let ourselves feel our feelings.
Yeah, I re-engaged, I re-engaged in therapy. So like COVID, coming off like being on TV, and was like just lost, and it was like back to feeling like a newcomer in sobriety. Like I just felt very lost in the world. And someone said, it was actually a colleague of ours, Carrie Wilkins. She's like, Zach, you should probably consider getting back into therapy. Do you want to? And that's why I love our field, because she just like, she wasn't gonna like force it on me, but and so I've been in therapy weekly for the past 4 years. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that.
Well, you should be. I feel like I think a lot of people go to therapy and it's almost like going to the gym, right? It's like going to your trainer. It's like taking care of your mental and emotional well-being on a weekly basis. And then I think other people go because there's maybe a more pressing reason, or like something that they're really like goal-oriented about, kind of figuring out or achieving. So it just depends. But I think it's so important to have that space to kind of like continue to learn about ourselves, because I think we're always changing, we're always growing.
So what will you so like, I'm always fascinated. Like, one, I don't know how the hell therapists do it. Like 40 hours of talk therapy a week is like, I'm going to be fried after this conversation.
Right.
And you're going to go and do like probably back-to-back sessions till 7:00 tonight, which is like, to me, and it's not like you don't have bad days. So how do you show up when you know you're going to have 8 sessions in a row and you're expected to be this, light, or I'm just curious what that.
Yeah, I don't even know almost. It's so natural for me now. And I sometimes really enjoy that I can like not deal with my shit and just be there for them. But if it's if it's 8 clients back to back, I'm going to have like 10 different juices that I overpaid for, like to get me through. And you're just kind of like really in it with them. Like the thing about it is I'm like in myself as present as I can be with the client, which feels good regardless of what's going on in my life, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a lot. It's just got to be a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think I have a large capacity, so you just kind of get used to it. Not everyone would see 8 clients back to back. I'm sure of that.
Right.
But I think I also love it because I see couples, I see families and individuals, and I do EMDR. So all of that breaks up my day too. It's not the same conversation over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like you have a couple session for an hour, you are, at the edge of your seat most of the time because it's pretty intense. And then you have your clients that you have a longer standing relationship with that it kind of just, it's so comfortable being with them. So it kind of just changes throughout the day. So it goes by pretty quickly.
And when do you know, like, someone, I guess what would be, you see someone the first time, what are the chances they come back for a second session? And then how many sessions for them to stick?
I mean, that's a great question. I feel like it's probably really different and it depends on the person. I feel like most people that are coming to me have been sent to me. So like they're sticking after that first session. There's probably a pretty good chance they'll stick. I'd say it's probably like those first few, maybe by the 3rd session, I might say something and you can kind of see it resonating, And
do
then
you do all your own scheduling or do you have help?
I have some help now.
Okay.
I have some help now.
You earned it. Come on.
I have some help now with the scheduling.
And what about like cancel it? Because that's where I just get so fucked up with the therapy thing. It's like if you're trying to help someone, you're trying to show up and someone cancels 2 weeks in a row and you want to be like welcoming and loving, like one, you kind of have to charge them. And then 2, it's like, hey, we agree. What does that look like?
I mean, I'm usually asking about it. And generally it doesn't, usually people come, I have to say.
Okay.
When someone's like really not showing up, it's usually clinical.
I just assume no one's showing up.
No, actually they come. But I would say too, like it usually feels clinical, meaning like it's like in the transference, it's in the relationship, like they're acting out.
Yeah.
This happened recently, but I don't want to give too many details because it'll be too obvious.
That's
but like
fine.
I had a client who's the work's been getting really intense.
Yeah.
So he's backing off. And so I know that. So I reach out and I'm like, hey, actually recently I just said, you're probably not going to want to come next week. So come next week.
Yeah.
Like notice that and just try and come.
But that's where the freedom is.
Yeah.
I mean, like I know for me, like my therapeutic experience, my therapeutic journey, there are weeks and weeks and weeks where I am talking about the same shit week in,
I know,
week out.
you don't want to.
And I'll say to my therapist, I'm like, you have to be sick of hearing this. And she just like, she holds that space and she makes it comfortable. And then at some point, there's freedom because you get through the work together. I mean, that for me has been the biggest benefit to the journey.
I think so. And I think like just being able to it's those moments. Like it's those moments that are the hardest, I think. Probably for the therapist and the client, like the most uncomfortable moments that I think the actual like healing happens, the actual growth happens. Like, and I know that now. I used to be like, oh my gosh, this client's coming and like, I'm nervous or like I'm anxious because it didn't go well last week. And now I know like, I kind of like roll up my sleeves and get excited.
Yeah.
Because it's like the work, this is the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you mentioned all the different types of therapy, and one stuck out to me, so I want to kind of dig in here. I am fascinated by couples therapy. I'm just like isn't there a show right now where someone's?
Oh yes, she's wonderful too.
Oh, she's good.
She's so good.
How do you feel about it? Are you
like
cool?
I would fangirl her on the
Okay.
street for sure.
But are you cool with her? Are the sessions like, oh, like, is it?
I think she's great. I mean, they're edited. I would love someone to edit my sessions too.
Okay.
So I don't know
What's it called?
it's called couples therapy.
Okay.
Orna is her name, the therapist. She's really great. And it's good watching it because it helps me remember things. Like she's really good at sitting back because you're not in it. Like you can sit back and kind of observe. Right? That's what they need you for. They need you to observe what's going on with them so that you can help them be curious about it. That's why they're there. And couples often think they're there for like the content of their argument, like who left the dishes in the sink. It's never, ever, ever about the content, really, with couples. It's never about the dishes in the sink. And I've definitely had people have a really hard time, like letting that element go, like needing to be right. And recognize it's really more about the feelings, and generally it's the way we protect ourselves. So if I'm feeling vulnerable and my way of protecting myself is to pull away, and now my partner is feeling abandoned, so now they're activated, they're feeling vulnerable, what are they going to do? Maybe they're going to chase me, right? And now here's that very common kind of couple cycle of like the distancer pursuer, right? And it's the way we kind of can, for lack of a better way, like trigger each other in that dynamic. And we're going to do it. Like couples, like that's your primary attachment, right? So that stuff, whatever those things are from childhood, are going to come up. So when you're able to like get in there and get curious about it with them and they can recognize where it comes from, like, oh, that's because, it's like everyone gets a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more understanding. And it's like, what can we do different? Like maybe I can say to you, like, I think I need some space, but I'm going to be back. Like I need 5 minutes or whatever it is, like just more communication around it. And we can, it's not really about not triggering each other because it's still going to happen, but it's like, how do we react? Or maybe it's more like, how do we respond instead of react?
At what point are you getting, I have so many questions about this. So do you get couples that are like, just out of the honeymoon period, like 7-8 months into dating, and they're calling and saying like, we lost our spark? Are you getting folks that have been together for 20 years and like, hey, we're not having sex anymore, like I don't like them, we want an open relationship? Like what's that?
I mean, I'm getting all kinds of things. So it definitely runs the gamut. But I think people wait too long to do couples therapy.
Got it.
I wish people would come earlier. Like come earlier. Don't wait till you hate each other to come and try and do this. Also, I think, and when it's towards that space, I think one person's already out oftentimes. And sometimes the work of the couples therapist is helping them separate.
Yeah.
The goal, like I can't be attached to a goal of keeping people together, right? That's not my role. So it's interesting in that way that.
Do they ever come back? If they're out, like, have you had situations where you've like, oh, this guy is out, and then you've started to work with them and.
Yeah, they come back in, like, and it is kind of like, sometimes, and I will often use this one, I'll be like, because there's so much ambivalence. Do we stay? Do we go? And it's like owning that ambivalence, which is really hard and scary when you love each other, to say like, I'm not sure and you're not sure, and to sit in that space. But it's like, if we're going to do this and we're going to meet for the next however long, like, why don't I take that idea of leaving? I usually say like, I'll keep it on my shelf in my office. And like, for now, we're just gonna do this work. And oftentimes it alleviates some pressure in that ambivalence, and they'll kind of settle in to like letting themselves get curious about what is actually happening. And when they're able to let those protector parts, like those ways of reacting, kind of go, and you just lead with the vulnerability, they start connecting again.
How much, like, I want to get in there a little bit, like how much of it is physical? Like they just don't want to have sex anymore. Like their best, because like, I just feel like you stick around this planet, like I'm 40 years old now, and I have friends and like all types of people that get married and are in relationships, and the shit at my age now, it's like there are affairs, there are open relationships. I mean, especially in New York City. I mean, this place is wild. So I'm just like, I'm curious about.
Well, sex is a huge thing. It definitely comes up it's hard to have two partners right? You maybe have one person that can like have sex to have sex and like have it just be physical and like, you know, that could be fine. But generally, at least one person is kind of needing the emotional connection and the emotional intimacy to feel like they even want to be physical, right? And this goes for like heteronormative couples, and I have a lot of same-sex couples as well, which is a little niche. I don't know how I got, but I'm so grateful for it because I really love it. Yeah, I really love it. But yeah, sex is a huge thing, and I think it's hard because the relationship's not being tended to. So to have that feel safe and like, I don't know, it's hard to do it without that intimacy part, the emotional intimacy, the emotional connection, feeling like thought about during the day. It could be the smallest gestures, the smallest things to help people stay connected so that that can be on the table and feel okay. And I also think people don't have sex for a long time, and then it's a thing because you haven't done it, and no one wants to initiate because no one wants to get rejected. So it becomes so vulnerable. What do people do? They just avoid it. They don't even talk about it.
I mean, we've all been there. It's like, you know, you're feeling a little frisky and you come on to whoever you're dating, your partner, and they're like, yeah, not tonight. I'm not feeling it. You're like, oh.
Yeah. And at some point you stop. You're not going to keep trying. Right.
Shut down.
And
retreat.
then it's this cycle. Right. Exactly.
And that's interesting. Okay, so you're like, so there's couples where one person can probably just like come home and be like,
totally, no matter what. I mean, I think like no matter what the state of the relationship, yes, would be happy to get laid.
And then the other person might need like a true connection to get turned on, to get to a place where like this.
Well, and to feel, I think this is where it happens, is like to feel like it's about you. Because it doesn't feel like it's about me if it's just about getting laid. If we're in a relationship, right? Yeah. So that's the part that I think I see is like wanting it to feel like it has something to do with me. Like it's not just about you.
Well, that's what I get a lot of guys that I'll, you know, in early sobriety, like they're freaked out to have sober sex because they've just like had drunk sex their entire life. And I sit them down and I'm like, dude, do you know how poorly you were probably behaving in the bedroom?
Well, yeah.
And like how grateful this girl is going, or this woman is going, or whoever you're having sex with is going to be, that you're actually like thinking about them and present. And it's all the shit we learn in sobriety, like be of service, think of the other person. Like it's not just like a pump and go and hey, I got mine. Right. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like, and I think there is a lot of just the vulnerability of it all is why it kind of gets left undone. A lot of times couples will come in and they haven't had sex in 3 years and they haven't talked about it.
3 years?
Like imagine 3 years and the first time you're talking about it is because I'm kind of forcing you to, because I'm asking. Like,
wait, hold up.
What's
people
physical?
Go 3 years without having sex?
Yes, people go longer than that.
And what are they doing?
I don't know.
Are they having affairs or just masturbation?
I mean, sometimes they're having affairs, sometimes masturbation, sometimes just really shut down.
Oh.
Like I think sometimes people really like shut that part of themselves down, you know? So.
Wow, I have compassion for those people. I mean, relationships are hard. I mean, that's why couples therapy is so fascinating to me, because I'm someone that's always been open to therapy. So if like I'm dating someone or I'm with someone, they say, you want to do therapy? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, really? Like, yeah, let's make the appointment. You know, but to other people, it's so much work. Is it more, I guess you said you deal with a lot of same-sex couples, but in couples where it's guy-girl, who's typically reaching out?
I mean, it's pretty like what is it? Stereotypical in a way that like it's usually the woman, right? But I won't just let one person call and book the appointment. I ask that the partner calls and make sure. Yeah, because I think both people need to buy in. So it's not, oh, well, you picked this therapist and we hate her, right? Like, so I won't do it unless it's like, well, if you're, you know, let me have your husband reach out. Let's make sure I feel like a good fit for him too. And then we'll move forward. But it typically is the woman that is reaching out still. And it often can feel like the man's dragging his feet.
And the dude's calling and like, my wife told me to call you.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, right. Yeah. And then it's like trying to engage them and like having like a buy-in, right?
Yeah.
That like,
she cares about you, dude.
Well, it's also just like, this could be actually really beneficial. Like, are you happy? Are you satisfied? And it's like, okay, if not, then like, why not get in here and let's talk about it?
Right. And then what if there's like a substance use disorder or drink too much, like how does that change the dynamic? Like if the wife calls you and she's like, I think my husband's an alcoholic, are you trying to get him in your office, or are you working with her to start to do her own work?
If they come in as a couple, then
Yeah.
that's my client.
Yeah.
And if I am also kind of seeing, some signs, then I will, a lot of times everyone gets a therapist. So if whether it's a family that's seeing me or a couple, like everyone, it's kind of like Oprah, like you get a therapist, you get a therapist, you get a therapist. So especially if there were a concern around drinking, I would absolutely be making a referral so that that person has their own lane to kind of like explore that. And whatever is going to come up in the couple is going to be kind of my lane with them. Right. And so maybe he doesn't think he has a problem, but she does. And that affects the relationship. So we have to talk about that.
Right.
And start exploring it. And it's hard because there's usually a lot of defensiveness around that. And you don't want the person to feel ganged up on. You don't want them to feel judged. So I try and honestly say, like, it could be any behavior. Like, okay, it's drinking, but it could be any behavior that's taking you, what does drinking do? It moves you towards or away from a feeling. So, like, what's actually going on? So I try and just dig deeper so that it's not going to push that person out the door.
Do you still love the work?
Love the work.
You do?
Yeah, I really do. I feel so grateful to, like, love what I'm doing.
I do too.
Yeah. It feels like I'm doing exactly what I should be doing.
Yeah. And the reasons have changed. I mean, like my work has shifted. I mean, obviously, like we talk, like you've started a private practice and successfully done so. And there's a whole nother element that comes with that. And for me, growing release, and now we have like 80 employees. And so my focus has to shift to like helping our people grow and making sure that we're maintaining like the history and the culture and the spirit of what was built here. And so I love the new challenges of the work. And I also just think that, and we were talking about this a little bit before we got started, is it's changing in the sense that for me, when I got sober 12 and a half years ago, I was like, okay, I needed to stop drinking and stop doing heroin. Like it was very clear.
That was the priority.
Right. And once I did that, I was like somewhat, I mean, I'm still sick, but like, in my ways, and I'll never be.
We all have our shit.
Yeah, we all have our shit.
We all have our shit.
But in some ways, I was like, oh, okay, that made a lot of sense. And like, I'm ready to do whatever it takes to start to build a life. But nowadays, it's almost like sobriety is the first step towards actually healing all this other. So can you talk, like in 2024, what are you seeing as a therapist? How is like the landscape kind of changed?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if it's the landscape that's changed or it's having more experience or like finding myself doing deeper work. Like I started out working in outpatient substance abuse and very quickly realized that like I wanted to learn about trauma and that I needed to learn about trauma. And so much of substance use is kind of a symptom, I think, related to PTSD and things like that. So just realizing you have to go deeper and the work has to go deeper. In terms of like where that healing is at. The substance use is like the symptom that something else is going on.
Right.
And even in a family, like the person using is kind of the
Can you
alarm.
explain that just like in a base, like when you say it's a symptom?
Yeah. So I think of it as like that's the symptomology that lets us know there's something else going on. It's not the thing. And if you can't get to the something else until that symptom, right, is until you're sober. But if you get really stuck on the symptom, you're going to miss all the other stuff. And I think that's also when you're like just working with a human. It's a person. It's not just like you need to stop drinking. It's like being able to understand that there's something else going on that's driving that, right? And I think that helps a lot also with the stigma when families and spouses and, right, the people that love the person can kind of understand like this is because someone's suffering. This is the symptom of that. So why are we suffering, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was a couple years sober and I was out with a friend and we were like kind of getting to know each other and he was kind of sharing his story and he was openly gay and he was sober and we had kind of connected. And he said to me, he's like, I drank at the fact that I knew I was gay and couldn't feel like I could tell anyone for years. And he's like, the second I came out, there was this freedom, and all of a sudden, like the alcohol was still there, but I was able to kind of work through that because I got free. Like I was actually just, my truth was out there.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's the thing. Like, I think, especially through a trauma lens, like substances can kind of keep people alive. It works at first.
Yeah.
You know? And so until it doesn't, right? And like most of our adaptive coping skills, we grow and evolve, and our system doesn't get updated like the way our phones do, right? So like knowing that at some point it really worked for the person and they really needed it and it may have saved their life, and now it's not working anymore.
I mean, look, like Xanax is one hell of a drug, like that. I mean, obviously, like I don't mess with substances anymore, but like I remember being 25 years old and being like, I just want to shut off for tonight, like whatever in my mind. And it wasn't these, like I wasn't suicidal, but it was like whatever crazy thoughts I was having, and I would just like, gobble and go to sleep.
Well, and that's the thing. It's having to deal with those feelings. Why would we want to feel painful feelings? Like, why wouldn't we want to move away from that, right? Like, it's interesting because I think about it like you learn not to touch the hot stove twice because you burn yourself. And I think our brain kind of works similarly to avoid painful feelings, although, because it's counterintuitive that actually with emotions, it's about learning to feel them. It's about moving towards them. And so it's counterintuitive that like, actually, no, we have to feel these painful feelings, not kind of engage in all these ways of avoiding them, which usually increases depression, increases anxiety, right? Increases risk. And so, it kind of has to do with the fact that like we evolved as humans to have emotions so that we could protect ourselves and adapt to our environments. And we do so much to not feel. And I think we miss so much important information by not being able to just slow down and feel the feelings.
Do you cry? Do you have emotion?
I cry all the time.
Okay.
I cry all the time. I might cry before this is over.
Okay. I'm a crier. It's all good.
Yeah, I used to not be, and then obviously all the therapy and all the work, like I can barely like hold anything.
Do you do that? Can I ask? Yeah.
I don't mind disclosing that I love my therapist.
Okay.
She's amazing. I'm very grateful for her.
Amazing.
I think all therapists should have therapists.
I mean, you would think.
I think it would be good. I think it's good to remember what it's like to be the client too.
I mean, I'll never. It's crazy. I remember I was again like early in my career, they do these. You've probably been on them, where treatment centers, so substance abuse treatment centers, mental health, they'll host kind of professionals to show off their programs. And you go and you have meals and you sit in groups and you do the whole thing. And I was with a group of colleagues and we were down at this place in Nashville, and it was like the second or third day. And we got into the ring with the horse to do some equine stuff.
I love that.
And one of the therapists lost. And she was like, hat down, sunglasses on, mean mugging everyone the entire first couple days.
Wow.
And like everyone's like, what's up with this chick? Like, she's not very nice. We're all just here to like learn about the program and hang out. And something happened when she got in and near that horse, that like something, and she broke down in the middle of like all these all of her, and I think ended up like staying or doing like needed to do the work, and something broke free, and I just have to imagine that she was probably treating so many people and showing up for so many people, but not showing up for herself.
Totally. And I think also we hold so much. Like,
yeah.
I take in all of that, and the therapist is holding all of that, plus your own stuff, plus your own, life. And it's really like I have my therapist, and then I also have supervision. So I have supervision for work, which is kind of like therapy for work.
Yeah.
And I have my EMDR supervisor. Like I do a lot of like work to like make sure I'm good to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Because it's so much.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to start the podcast, which I'm just really like, the hope is just to be helpful. And so as we think about therapy and your work, and the person that might be listening to this that is resonating but has never done therapy or did therapy and is scared to get back into it, how would you describe that process? Is it fair to say it's going to suck and then it's going to get better? Or like, it's like, how would you mean, like, just like if you were to say, this is my sales pitch to go into doing therapy, what would that,
Oh my
what would that
gosh.
be? Yeah.
I think the thing is like life is short to see, now I'm gonna get emotional. I feel like life is really short to not feel like you know yourself, like you can connect to other people. And so to give yourself that and give yourself the opportunity to kind of really slow down, really learn to feel, to stop running. I think so many people are just running. You can't run from yourself. We go wherever we're going. And so to be at peace with that and like in a place of acceptance, like is worth the hard feelings and the hard work of showing up, I think. I don't know. Was that good? Was that
great.
a pitch?
I mean, I'm a runner. I mean, like I'm
literally
a runner.
you're a runner.
I mean, physically I run, but I also, I was talking to my dad this morning, and I was like, we have this Thursday call every week at 10 o'clock with my dad, which I look forward to and I love. It always starts like, business, and then it moves to personal and son, what's going on. My dad's the best, and he kind of just said like, what's been going on? And I got really sick over the weekend, and prior to that, I was just kind of like all over the place. And I thought about it in that moment, like I couldn't even answer the question. Like I was just going so fast that
really
I can't even tell people what I'm doing.
Right. Well, I think life can get really busy, right? And it's New York. Yeah. We're all really busy all the time.
Sirens.
Yeah. Like it never stops. And so I think that's the thing that I've learned and also try and share and like work with people on is like the ability to slow down.
Yeah.
And be like present in your body. Like so I do a lot of like, where do you feel that in your body? Like, where does that resonate? Can you name what you're feeling? Because I don't think we actually feel unless we slow down. I don't think we can actually be aware of what we're feeling if we just keep going. Mm-hmm. Like on to the next, Mm.
Yeah, I do know.
And I think that's where like the healing comes from too, is being able to slow down, feel some of those hard feelings that need our attention.
Yeah.
And we're kind of doing the opposite when we just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about what you just said too is, I think with therapy, and there is more brands and more folks that are kind of like therapy is cool, and like right. There's like a lot of that stuff coming out, which I appreciate and love. And for us, in particular, like the work you're not just a general therapist, right? Like you're dealing with trauma and substance use disorder and affairs and like heavy stuff. Like you're, right. And I just wonder what it would take to shift the narrative around therapy to like, you don't have to be in crisis to take care of yourself.
Totally. I honestly think it's like kind of a gift to take care of yourself, to give yourself 45 minutes a week. It's not that much, 45 right. minutes a week. If you think about all the other things people will prioritize, it's like 45 minutes a week for yourself, for whatever you want
right.
to like be curious about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that's the assumption, right? Like I only go to therapy, my life is burning down. Like
right.
I've actually had to learn that
that's
the most valuable therapy
is.
for me
right.
is like when shit's going good, like let's
exactly.
keep it.
Exactly. And that's the same for couples. That's the same for families. It's so much easier in a way to do deeper work or to be more curious when like there isn't a fire to put out.
Right.
Because that's crisis management. That's not therapy.
Yeah. Which probably isn't even fun for, like that's probably stressful for you, right? As a therapist or?
Yeah. I mean, yes. When people are only calling when their house is on fire, it's like, yeah, that's not exactly what I do, right? I can do it, but that's not I don't know. That's not the long term. You're not going to get, that's a symptom. Yeah. That's not the root. So until you're able to get in here and focus and spend some time, right? You won't get to the root of whatever those fires are, I don't think.
But there's hope.
I think so. I wouldn't be able to do this work if I didn't get to work with people that like get something out of it and make changes and get benefit. That's what's so rewarding about it. It's kind of like getting to just be the witness for them. Yeah,
we're all connected by our stories. I mean, even today you walked in and we started, in a very general way, like we just know, like we've worked on cases together and we've treated people together, and there's been highs and there's been lows, and for the most part, if you get to see someone over the course of like 5 to 10 years, that's one of my problems with sobriety. And when someone comes into release or someone decides to get sober, it's oftentimes the family, because they're uneducated, it's very black and white. They're either sober or they're not. It's either good or bad. And what I've learned throughout my career is that this is actually like truly a marathon.
Yeah.
And so, someone walks into your office, with all this trauma and a heroin addiction and, a messy relationship, and 5 years later, they're like able to have a glass of wine here and there, and they're in a healthy like that's a win.
Yeah, there is definitely like in terms of the substance use piece, like I've really learned, and I think I have a pretty large capacity for risk, so I can really ride like with people through some shit.
We've seen it
in the hopes of like that they're gonna find their way of like what they want, what they need for themselves. But it really is your own sense of safety and risk of when I use the relationship and say like, this doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And what are we doing? I don't know that I'm helping. Like, what are we doing? That kind of conversation that you have to kind of like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, that's such a great starting point. Like, what do you want? I don't think
like,
a lot
what
of
are
people
you
can answer
looking?
that question.
Yeah.
Like people ask me what I like to do. For me, at my age, it's very clear. Like I like to golf. I like to go to Pearl Jam concerts. I like to run. I like, like to go to Philadelphia sporting events. I can rattle it off. But it's very interesting to talk to people who are just starting out on like the healing journey. Like you ask them what they like to do, they literally can't answer the question. They don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think also if it's just been substances, then there probably isn't anything else.
Yeah.
A lot of times you have to go back to like before substances. What did you like? Because maybe you'll still like some of that. And like the exploration and the experimentation of finding out. But I think that can also be, it's work, but it's hopefully also rewarding for them,
Well, you're the best. I got to do some plug work here. So in New York, you're like 20, like your office
25th and Broadway.
25th and Broadway, so like in the easily accessible.
Yes.
How do people find you?
On KMFtherapycollective.com. Our website.
KMF Therapy Collective.com.
That's it. Yep.
And they'll be able to kind of poke
everything's
around
there. The wonderful people I've working with me are all on there.
How many therapists do you have in the city?
I have 3 in the city and 2 in Hoboken.
Okay. So you got a squad.
Got a little squad, yeah.
Are you liking that?
I'm loving it, but also really aware of like keeping it.
Where it's at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met a few of them, right? Didn't they come to our event? Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
awesome. You did. Okay. Yeah, they're wonderful. I'm really, really blessed to have people that have experience.
Yeah.
That want to work with me.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily people that are just getting out of school. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but everyone, just because of the kind of referrals we get, like everyone's really experienced, EMDR, couples, family, like they're great. And
through the website, if people have questions or they're just curious, or they can like write in, or they'll be able to contact and do all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sweet. Anything else you think is important before we?
I think the most important thing is that you listen to the new album, and then so you can tell me like which songs you like
Got
best.
Yeah. I was on. Hey, look, my ego wanted to say make up, like some twisted, but like I just haven't.
Well, you clearly need to slow down and make some time to listen to it, because they're going to play it in September.
Yeah, you can't go see them because half the show is going to be fucking dark matter.
New shit.
Which
so
is
you
fine.
Learn the
I
new
appreciate
shit.
that. People like.
Is your favorite song Release? Is that the favorite song?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it, in my heart, my soul, just because of what goes on here and the work and just what it means to me, of course, but they're like, the songs come and go from existence, and I don't know, they just got me, and people are just like, Pearl Jam? I'm like, yes, Pearl Jam.
Well, people that get it.
Yeah, well,
also, if anyone sees them live, they get it.
I learned that in therapy. Like, in terms of my taste of music and sports teams, like, I'm done with the fights. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's just like, I like the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not someone at the game who's like, pulling your shirt overhead and, you're cheering for the other team. Like, we can be adults here, but go Birds.
Right. Got it.
Well, you're the best. This was easy. Are you not nervous anymore?
I'm not nervous
Okay,
anymore,
good.
so I don't know what happened, but thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Kristy Fitzgerald, everyone, thank you for coming. That's a wrap for this edition of the Zach Clark Show.
Awesome.